Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that female leaders, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, helped begin the women's right to vote movement at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848? Discover that Stanton and Mott, along with other women, were called suffragettes, who organized meetings, gave speeches, marched in parades, and signed petitions to support the voting rights of women. Learn how the Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances was modeled after the Declaration of Independence and was introduced at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York. Discover that Wyoming was the first state to give women the right to vote, and Utah was one of the earliest places where women voted. Ultimately, realize that the 19th Amendment changed American history by making it illegal to deny citizens the right to vote because of their gender.
You know, usually when we look up at the sky, we just see, empty space.
Right, yeah.
We think of it as this great void where gravity just totally rules everything. Like if you drop an apple, it falls. If you jump, you come right back down. We're tethered to the ground. And for, basically most of human history, that just felt like an inescapable law of nature.
It is comforting in its predictability, I guess, but it's kind of an absolute prison, too. Gravity is the ultimate anchor.
Exactly. But then you realize that the sky isn't empty at all. It's actually full of these invisible thermal rivers, these currents of energy that are just waiting to be tapped.
Oh, absolutely.
And the craziest part is how we actually figured that out. Because we didn't start with precise aerospace engineering.
Not at all.
We started by sending a duck and a sheep in a wicker basket to test if the sky was toxic.
Which is still just wild to think about.
Right. I mean, we went from literally tying balloons to city gas pipes to spy on Civil War troops to building these massive airborne capsules that floated 13 miles into the stratosphere.
It really is a profound trajectory. We basically traded an inescapable law of nature for the absolute freedom of the sky.
So welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive, everyone. We are incredibly excited because today, June 5th, is officially Hot Air Balloon Day.
Yes, it is.
And to celebrate, we have compiled just a massive stack of sources for you. We are pulling from historical texts, really detailed records of atmospheric flights, literary and cinematic references, and some incredible specific video resources, too.
Yeah, the videos are fantastic.
They really are. We've got a 3-minute and 18-second history video that breaks everything down, and this incredible 6-minute and 53-second video on the very first flight.
It's a remarkably rich collection to pull from, for sure.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore the evolution of hot air balloons, driven by this deeply human desire to, conquer our own limitations. We're going to trace this journey from ancient military signals and farm animal test pilots all the way up to those jaw-dropping altitude records.
It's quite a timeline.
But more than just the history, we're going to look at how these lighter-than-air vessels ultimately serve as a factual blueprint for our own spiritual elevation.
Oh, that's the best part.
And right out of the gate, I want to make sure you know that everything we're covering today, from the surprising limitations of Civil War espionage to profound insights on human faith, is entirely true.
Completely factual.
We are dealing with recorded history and reality today. So, and understand how we eventually touch the edge of the atmosphere, we really have to look at the foundational science first.
Right. We have to start with the earliest airborne inventions to really get it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before human beings were stepping into baskets, there were Chinese sky lanterns.
Exactly. They are essentially the true ancestors of the modern hot air balloon.
Wow, really?
Yeah, these airborne lanterns are a vital part of Chinese history and culture. But what's intriguing is that they weren't initially designed for the beautiful festivals or celebrations we associate them with today.
Oh, they weren't.
No, they were invented entirely for practical, tactical reasons.
Yeah.
They were used to create signals for military operations.
Which is wild to think about. You're in the middle of a military campaign centuries ago. You're trying to coordinate troop movements, and you're communicating by essentially commanding fire to float into the sky.
It's brilliant, really.
But break the mechanics down for me, because this is where the physics still seem almost like magic to a lot of us. How does a paper envelope and a small fire actually defeat gravity?
Well, it all comes down to the behavior of molecules when they are introduced to heat.
Okay.
The exact physics outlined in our sources show that as air molecules are heated, they become highly energized.
Wait, they start vibrating.
Exactly. Their kinetic energy increases,
Right.
which causes them to bounce further apart from one another and basically expand.
So the air itself isn't disappearing, it's just like stretching out.
Right.
The volume is the same, but it's less crowded.
Precisely. And because those molecules are expanding and pushing away from each other, the heated air inside the envelope, the balloon itself, ends up having a much lower density than the cooler, more tightly packed air surrounding it on the outside.
Ah, I see.
So lift is achieved only when that internally heated air becomes light enough to overcome the combined weight of the entire apparatus. You know, the balloon, the basket, the passengers, the cargo.
I was actually thinking about this earlier, and here's how I picture it in my head. Imagine the balloon envelope as just a giant upside-down cup.
Okay, I like that.
You're holding this massive empty cup over a heat source, and it's catching a rising current of those expanded energetic molecules.
Right.
They have nowhere to go but up into the bottom of the cup, pushing against the fabric. I mean, it's just amazing how such a simple principle of physics changed human history.
It is. That cup analogy is a really good starting point, but let's elevate the science just a bit.
Sure.
The cup analogy explains the capture of the heat, but the actual lift is really about buoyant force.
Buoyant force, okay.
Yeah, so the cooler, denser air on the outside is quite literally heavier. And as gravity pulls that heavy, cold air down, it pushes the lighter, less dense hot air up.
Oh, wow.
It's the exact same principle as a cork bobbing to the surface of a glass of water.
Wait, really? So it's like Archimedes' principle, but for the sky instead of the ocean.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the air inside has to be incredibly buoyant to lift the physical fabric of the balloon, the basket beneath it, and any passengers you happen to be carrying.
That makes a lot of sense.
The payload capacity is entirely dependent on that temperature differential. You need massive volume and significant heat.
It is incredible to me that recognizing the science on paper and actually trusting your life to a giant fabric bag over an open flame are, well, two very different things.
Oh, completely. The leap from theory to practice requires immense courage. Or in the case of the early pioneers, it requires a few unsuspecting test subjects first.
Which brings us to arguably the most bizarre part of the timeline. We jump to September 19th, 1783. Two French brothers, Jacques Etienne and Joseph Michel Montgolfier.
Right, the Montgolfier brothers.
They launched the first balloon-only flight. It was just the balloon itself, no passengers, and it lasted just 10 minutes.
A brief but monumental proof of concept, really. They proved the envelope could hold the heat and achieve lift.
Right, but they needed to know if living beings could actually survive up there.
Yes.
So their follow-up experimental flights lasted 15 minutes, and they featured a very specific crew. You had a sheep, a duck, and a rooster.
An incredible and highly calculated trio, actually.
See, people always paint this era of early flight as so majestic and romantic, people standing around in top hats marveling at the sky.
Right. Very dignified.
But let's be real, it was basically the 18th century equivalent of sending chimps and dogs into space during the Cold War, just with barnyard animals.
It absolutely was a primitive aerospace testing program. And what's fascinating here is the specific logic behind those animals.
Oh, there was logic to it.
Oh, definitely. The farm animals were used to prove that atmospheric conditions a few hundred feet up wouldn't instantly kill a living creature.
Wait, they thought the sky would kill them?
Yeah, there was a genuine pervasive fear at the time that the atmosphere just above the ground was toxic or lacked oxygen entirely.
So they weren't just testing the balloon, they were testing the sky itself.
Exactly. And the sheep was included because its physiology was thought to be somewhat similar to a human's.
Okay, that tracks.
The duck was essentially the control group because ducks already fly at high altitudes.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of a duck as a scientific control group. That is brilliant.
Right. And then the rooster, being a bird that doesn't fly high, was there to see if the altitude itself was harmful independent of the act of flying.
That is just amazing. And because they all survived, the timeline just accelerated wildly.
It really did.
Like, you look at modern aerospace engineering and testing phases take decades. But with the Montgolfier brothers, the leap from animals to humans happened in a matter of weeks.
Just weeks.
By October of that exact same year, 1783, a man named Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier stepped into the basket.
Just think about the psychological leap required for him to do that.
I can't even imagine.
He is trusting a completely new, barely understood technology, suspended beneath a massive envelope of heated air, knowing the only successful test subjects before him were livestock.
But he did it. He became the first human passenger in history. He proved that the farm animals were a crucial stepping stone. Humanity was officially airborne.
We were. But once we conquered the vertical axis, the immediate question became, well, how do we use this horizontally? How do we leverage this new perspective?
And humans being humans, the military quickly remembered the original purpose of those ancient Chinese sky lanterns.
Naturally.
If you can get up high, you can see the enemy. The ultimate human dream of flight was almost immediately adapted for war.
That's kind of a recurring theme in human innovation, isn't it? The prompt pivot to tactical advantage.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Our sources document that by 1794, just 11 years after that first human flight, the military employed hot air balloons for aerial observation during the Battle of Fleurus in the French Revolutionary Wars.
Wow, that fast.
Yes, they were used strictly for aerial observation.
Which makes perfect sense, honestly. If you can hover a few hundred feet above a battlefield, you instantly neutralize the fog of war.
Exactly.
You can see troop formations taking shape, you can spot supply lines, you can identify hidden artillery positions. It's the ultimate high ground.
It is. And this wasn't just a European tactic. This evolved and crossed the Atlantic. During the U.S. Civil War, Union troops used hot air balloons quite extensively to spy on Confederate troops.
But wait, hold on. Our sources say it wasn't just passive observation anymore.
No, it advanced.
Union balloons were actually aiming weapons. They were helping soldiers aim at enemy troops by directing artillery fire from the sky.
Yes, they were.
How were they even communicating with the ground while under fire? I mean, they didn't have radios in the 1860s. Are they just, like, shouting down from a basket?
No, it was much more sophisticated than that.
Really?
Yeah, they actually ran insulated telegraph wires all the way down the tether line, connecting the balloon to the ground.
You're kidding?
Not at all. The aeronaut up in the basket had a telegraph key, and they were tapping out coordinates and adjusting artillery fire in real time.
That is wild.
It was so successful that it led to the official establishment of the U.S. Army Balloon Corps.
Okay, that is an incredible piece of engineering.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about the hilarious limiting reality of the very first Army balloon used in this effort.
Oh, yes.
Because it was very aptly named the Union. And you picture it soaring majestically over the battlefields, right? But it really couldn't go very far at all because it depended on tapping directly into Washington, D.C.'s natural gas lines.
Yes. The reliance on ground-based stationary fuel sources was a massive logistical bottleneck.
I mean, I can imagine trying to explore your entire neighborhood, but your smartphone is plugged into the wall with a 3-foot charger cable.
That is a perfect analogy.
You can only go as far as the infrastructure allows. The military solved the problem of altitude, but they were still prisoners to the infrastructure.
Exactly. They traded the restriction of gravity for the restriction of a gas pipe.
Right. They were completely tethered to the ground, even while they were in the air.
Which brings us to the most critical evolution of the technology. That limitation, being tethered to ground-based fuel, really begs the question, how did balloons finally achieve the total freedom we associate with them today?
Right, because when you see them at a beautiful festival today, they aren't exactly dragging a massive hose back to a city gas main.
No, they are not. So to truly conquer the sky, the balloon had to become its own power plant.
Okay.
And the answer to that problem arrived in the mid-20th century. During the 1950s, an American inventor named Paul Edward Yost developed the onboard heat source.
Oh.
He basically solves the weight-to-energy ratio by using a lightweight, highly combustible fuel.
Mm-hmm.
He figured out a way to safely carry propane and a burner into the sky with the balloon.
Wow. That changes absolutely everything. You are no longer borrowing heat from the ground. You are actually generating it in the sky.
It revolutionized the field entirely. The first successful untethered flight with a propane burner occurred in Nebraska during the 1960s.
Okay.
Instead of relying on municipal gas, it used the heat from that onboard burner. And that specific flight lasted 1 hour and 35 minutes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because that invention created the foundation for, like, the total democratization of flight.
Absolutely.
What started as a deadly military experiment and evolved into a tethered artillery spotter has now become a deeply peaceful, accessible experience.
It really has.
Like if you go on an average recreational flight today, it lasts about an hour. You drift at a gentle wind speed of about 5 miles per hour, traveling maybe 2 to 8 miles total.
Very gentle, very scenic.
And the whole time, You have a dedicated ground crew following below, chatting on the radio with the pilot.
It is the definition of a serene experience. Anyone can go up and experience the exact same physics that Blatre de Rosière risked his life for.
Exactly. But the sources show us the absolute extremes of what is possible when you take that same basic technology, an envelope, and a burner to its absolute limit.
Oh, the records are unbelievable.
We are talking about a man named Vijaypat Singhania. In 2005, he set a jaw-dropping altitude record.
Yes.
He reached an altitude of 21,027 meters.
To put that in perspective for you, commercial airliners usually cruise around 6 or 7 miles high.
Okay.
If you're in a Boeing 747 looking out the window, Singhania was flying double your altitude. He was 13 miles up.
Wait, 13 miles high? But the air is so thin up there, he wasn't just standing in a wicker basket in a winter coat, was he?
No. At that altitude, the temperature and lack of oxygen would be instantly fatal. He was inside a pressurized aluminum capsule. But the fundamental physics providing the lift were exactly the same as the Montgolfier brothers' balloon.
That's crazy.
He just needed a vastly larger envelope to catch the thin air and incredibly powerful burners.
It is staggering. His flight began in Mumbai, India, and he traveled 129 miles south.
And in doing so, Singhania actually beat the previous altitude record, which has stood since 1988.
Oh, wow. Who held that one?
That record was held by Per Lindstrand. He is a Swedish adventurer, a pilot, and an aeronautical engineer who is incredibly famous for his transoceanic balloon flights.
The sheer versatility of this invention is amazing. I mean, from peaceful Sunday morning festival rides to literally touching the edge of the stratosphere in a pressurized capsule.
It really highlights how deeply the concept of ascension captures the human imagination. We are obsessed with going higher.
We really are. And hey, just a quick note for you, our listener. If you want to experience this modern recreation yourself, our sources point out that there are currently factual deals out there offering 71% off adventure balloon rides on online shopping sites for fashion and lifestyle.
That is quite a discount for the sky.
I know, right? But even if you don't use that 71% discount to take flight, the sources prove that the concept of ballooning is deeply tied to our culture.
It really is.
Like, it's tied to our literature and even our spiritual growth. Now, when I was reading through our sources today, I have to admit I didn't expect a discussion about thermodynamics and military telegraphs to lead to a thesis on human spirituality.
It feels like quite a leap at first.
It does, but when you slow down and look at the mechanics of lift and how deeply this concept of rising is ingrained in our culture, it actually makes perfect sense.
It does. The cultural footprint of the balloon is massive.
Right. You don't even have to leave the ground to be impacted by it. You could celebrate Hot Air Balloon Day just by eating popcorn while watching the Disney Pixar movie Up.
A classic.
Or if you want something a bit more classical, you can dive into Jules Verne's 1863 adventure novel, which was actually republished in 1963, called 5 Weeks in a Balloon, or A Journey of Discovery by 3 Englishmen in Africa.
Yes, which explores themes of honor, courage, and man versus nature.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of these cultural touchstones resonate with us because the act of ascension is universally meaningful. The deepest truth found in our source material today isn't just about the physics of expanding air molecules. It is the reality that just as balloons rise, we can spiritually climb to new heights by having greater faith.
Yes. The physical mechanics we've been talking about are actually a perfect mirror for human spiritual development. We have these profound factual insights from President Henry B. Eyring that perfectly synthesize this. He stated that while youth are absolutely responsible for their own choices, it is the faithful parents, the teachers, the leaders, and the friends who actively shore up the faith of young people.
The parallel is striking. A balloon does not rise on its own.
Right.
The envelope is just empty fabric.
Yeah.
It cannot achieve lift without a continuous, intentional source of heat pushing against the atmospheric pressure.
Wow. Yeah.
Similarly, the youth require the continuous, intentional support and faith of the community around them to shore them up against the downward pressures of the world.
Exactly. If you turn off the burner, the balloon descends.
Right.
If you stop providing that warmth and vision, the lift is lost. The physical act of a balloon rising perfectly mirrors Eyring's mandate that we must raise our sights. And he says that begins directly with our aim, our vision of what we seek in the lives of our young people.
You can't reach new altitudes by looking down. You have to actively raise your sights.
You have to apply energy and warmth. When we look at a hot air balloon climbing into the sky, we aren't just looking at a scientific novelty, we're looking at a representation of how we are meant to elevate the next generation.
Beautifully said.
We provide the warmth, we provide the steady foundation, and they achieve the lift.
It transforms the history we've discussed from mere trivia into a profound spiritual imperative.
So, what does this all mean? The journey we've traced on this deep dive isn't just a story about escaping gravity. It's a story about overcoming our limitations.
Absolutely.
We started with the simple, elegant physics of expanding air in ancient military lanterns. We watched barnyard test subjects brave the skies to prove human flight was possible.
A duck, a sheep, and a rooster.
Right. We navigated the irony of early warfare, where majestic balloons were literally tethered to city gas lines like smartphone chargers to direct artillery fire.
Such a funny image.
And then we celebrated the brilliant engineering of onboard propane burners that eventually allowed adventurers to break the stratosphere 13 miles high.
Incredible records.
And ultimately, we arrive at the profound spiritual duty we all share, to shore up the faith of our youth, to provide that essential lift, and to purposefully raise our sights.
It is a remarkable trajectory, and it leaves you with something to deeply consider.
Oh, please.
If ancient sky lanterns began purely as tools for military signaling, and hot air balloons were later used for espionage, before eventually transforming into vessels of pure recreational joy and profound metaphors for spiritual faith.
Yeah.
What modern-day technology is currently used for war might one day be repurposed by future generations simply to elevate the human spirit.
Oh, that is a powerful thought to leave on. What are we building today out of fear that tomorrow will be used for joy?
Exactly.
Well, we want to warmly encourage you to really enjoy National Hot Air Balloon Day. Watch a movie, read some Jules Verne, maybe use that 71% off discount. But most importantly, remember to shore up the faith of those around you and raise your sights to new heights.
Hear, hear.
The next time you look up, don't just see empty space and gravity. Look for those invisible thermal rivers. Look for the lift. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.